Virginia. I, as Trevor said, am the Information Services Librarian, so if you come in the library, you probably see me on the second floor desk, and anytime you want to know about some of the great programs that have been mentioned in the speeches, you can always come and ask me, because I will tell you all about them. So today we are very pleased to welcome two wonderful local authors. We have Andrew Gilchrist and Sylvia Thomson. You may know Andrew's book, The Divine Daughter, which weaves together art, literature, religion, and psychology. Today, he will be speaking about how books and characters make us feel. Sylvia is local to Belleville, and she is so local, in fact, that she used to work here at the library. She painted our lovely mural in the children's program room downstairs. And she fulfilled her dream of writing a novel with her reviving joy, which she's going to talk about today. So please, everybody, welcome Sylvia and Andrew.
Well, I am so excited to be here this evening for more reasons than one. As Virginia mentioned, I used to work here at the Belleville Public Library, right here in the gallery for a while, and then downstairs in the children's department as well, where they let me paint the walls, yes. And I did have help. I had 5 young artists working alongside me. It only took about 4 months, 400 hours or so. It was a lot of fun. So tonight, I thought I'd share a little bit about my book, Reviving Joy, and a few writing tips for those of you who are writers. And then I'm going to share a secret with you. Would that be all right? So Reviving Joy is my first novel. I feel like it's a gift, really, something that I've dreamed of for a very long time. And now I stand here holding it in my hand, very proudly. It's kind of like having a little baby. You know, you're holding it inside of you for months and months and months, and then finally you let it go for the whole world to see, and you just hope and pray it's not one of those babies that, you know, only a mother could love. But how did this come about? I've been writing both professionally and creatively for many, many years, but I never thought I had what it takes to string, 85,000 words together and make a good story. Not until my big sister challenged me to write until you run out of words. Well, she knew I was a writer long before I did. We are very close, although she lives across the country, and she's an artist as well. So we would make things for each other and mail them across the country, snail mail. And it was a lot of fun. One year, I decided to write a fairy tale with her as the princess. It was really about her life. And she loved it. I mean, who wouldn't want to be the princess and, have the knight in shining armor come along and have a fairy godmother? And but at that time she said, you could write a book. You've got to do this. And so I thought I would try. So I started writing. I just took the fairy tale and added to it, and added a little more and a little more, writing and rewriting and writing, and then I got stuck. So writing tip number 1, getting stuck is part of the process. Don't give up. Change focus for a while until you learn what you need to, and then go back to writing. So while I was stuck, I happened to be working here at the Belleville Public Library in the John M. Parrott Art Gallery. And one day, Sue Holland, who is the curator here, she had a book on her desk. It was called Canadian Women in History, from about 1800 to 1900. It caught my attention. I spent some time reading it. Actually, I took it out for 3 or 6 or 12 weeks. Don't tell anyone. I was so intrigued by the way that women lived across Canada. Did you know that while women in Eastern Canada had lights and running water in the early 1900s, women out west were still living like pioneers with the outhouse, hauling water and lighting lanterns. It took 100 years for civilization to cross from the east to the western Canada. So when a mail-order bride agreed to take the train out west to marry her man, well, she was in for a few surprises. I found this history so fascinating. And now for the secret. Would you like to know where I got the idea for this novel, Reviving Joy? Right here in this gallery. This is actually where Reviving Joy was conceived. I decided to place my story back in 1910 in Canada. I created Hannah Joy by taking my sister's personality and then put her in a time machine, turning back 100 years or so. Suddenly, I had the perfect setting for my story. My characters came to life, and off I went on a journey, learning how to live in 1910. Challenging at best. So writing tip number 2. When your story takes a hard left turn, don't fight it. See where it takes you. Follow the passion and the energy. That's what makes writing fun. So I kept writing, and eventually I ran out of words. Sort of. There's going to be a sequel. I decided that I would keep writing until I was ready to publish it, and then I had to decide what to call it, how to market it, and what genre is it anyways? Is it young adult? Is it historical fiction? Is it romance? I'll tell you right now, it's a bit of all. All three. So here's what I know so far. Reviving Joy is a historical romance novel with a hint of adventure, a lot of faith, and courage. And I thought I would just read a little bit for you. Would that be okay? All right. So I'm going to take you to a little place in Manitoba back in 1910, and it's Christmas time. And the family that Hannah Joy has found herself living with, now she's traveled from Toronto to Manitoba, and she's kind of hiding out. And she's staying with the family and just getting to know them. They've just cut down the Christmas tree, and they're gathering around the fire to warm up. The family's full of anticipation for the rest of the evening's events. Hannah and Marion served hot apple cider, shortbread cookies, while Andrew and Bobby successfully planted the tree in a large pot and stood in the corner of the living room. "Can we make popcorn?" Jonathan asked. "You make it and we'll string it. That is, if you don't eat it all at once," his mother joked. While Hannah sat, quietly enjoying the laughter and the conversation of the McBride family, it made her more homesick than ever. She would make her way home soon, she decided, and start over again. This time, she'd follow her head and not her heart. Well, Bobby sat next to her and handed her a small package with a little ribbon around it. Hannah took the gift and looked at him with surprise. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it and find out." His eyes twinkled as he smiled at her. He couldn't help but stare into her green eyes. She was beautiful to him. He didn't know much about her, but all he wanted to do was put his arms around her and keep her safe forever. "Oh my," Hannah said softly, as she laid the hand-stitched handkerchief on her lap. She ran her fingers over the pink and yellow flowers, studying the intricate embroidery. There was lace sewn around the edges of the word joy. It was stitched with blue thread in the bottom right-hand corner. "It's so beautiful, Bobby. Where did you find such a thing?" She was afraid to ask, but it came out of her mouth before she could stop it. Bobby was happy to oblige. "Marion made it for you," he announced. "I asked her to put something special on it, and we decided joy sounded just like you." Bobby said loudly and winked at his sister-in-law across the room. When Marion saw the handkerchief on Hannah's lap, she smiled at her new young friend. Hannah mouthed the words, "Thank you," to her, and then looked intently into Bobby's eyes. "You didn't have to do this. I don't have anything for you." "I was hoping you'd take a walk in the moonlight with me. That would be the perfect gift, I think." Bobby stood, put out his hand to hers. "Just a short walk to the barn and back." Well, Hannah couldn't resist his charm. All eyes were on her as she stood and followed the tall cowboy to the door. "Can I come?" Tabitha asked. "Not this time, honey." Bobby ruffled her hair with his large hand. "We'll be back before you know it." Well, Tabitha stuck out her bottom lip and pouted as the door closed behind them. She didn't like being left out of anything. She sat by the door, staring out the window, wishing she could be outside with Hannah and Uncle Bobby. Well, sparkling like crystals, the snow-covered hills looked blue in the moonlight. Not a sound in the air, only the crunching of their feet could be heard as they walked down the path towards the barn. Hannah felt the peaceful air cool her lungs as she breathed in deeply and exhaled with a heavy sigh. "You're a very thoughtful person, Hannah," Bobby complimented. "Always thinking of others and putting them first. I admire that about you." Hannah dismissed his words with a chuckle. "You hardly know me, Robert McBride. For all you know, I'm secretly hiding the silver in my trunk and making a plan to get away with the goods." "Well then, I'd better keep a close eye on you," Bobby said as he pulled her close to him. Losing her balance, Hannah fell onto his chest, causing him to fall backward into the snowbank. The fluffy white snow surrounded them as they sank into the deep bank. Struggling to get up, Hannah slipped again, this time falling face first into the snow. Bobby grabbed her by the waist, pushed her up best he could, but the harder he tried to get out, the deeper he sank into the bank. The two of them laughed as they struggled to find their footing. Hannah decided if she was covered in snow, he should be too. She grabbed handfuls of the fluffy ice and threw it at him. It landed directly in his face. "This means war," he shouted, taking hold of her jacket and yanking her down to his level. Wrapping his arms around her, he rolled onto one side and squeezed her tightly. He looked into her beautiful eyes and felt his heart beat like a pounding drum. He wanted to kiss her right there and then. Hannah saw the look on his face. Her tummy fluttered and flipped, making her nervous. Panic began to set in. What was she doing in this man's arms? Terrified, yet full of curiosity and excitement, she looked at his lips. Was he about to kiss her? Her heart began to pound out of her chest. Am I crazy, she thought? I shouldn't be thinking about kissing a man. I'm far too vulnerable for this. I can't trust my feelings. Without another thought, she pushed him away. At the same moment, the sound of howling in the distance made her gasp out loud. Bobby saw the fear in Hannah's eyes and quickly released her. Are you okay? Bobby asked. She was shaking now. The last thing he wanted to do was hurt her. Maybe he was playing too rough. Did I hurt you? He asked. Hannah crawled on her hands and knees, managed to get up onto the path at last. I'm fine, she answered. I think I'm ready for a hot drink, she said as she brushed the snow off her coat. How about you? Hannah headed back towards the house without looking back or waiting for Bobby's response. He watched her walk away, determined to act as though nothing had happened. There she was, he thought to himself, that independent woman who didn't need anyone. She was just fine. He shook his head and followed her lead.